Hello, hello, and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and this is a place where we share real life experiences and wisdom. It's not about opinions, it's not about academics, it's not about, just things that people, it's real life experience, hopefully that you can learn from and apply to your own lives. And today, we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great time. I have Dave Lefkowitz with me, and he's the host of the podcast called Dave's Gone By, not Days Gone By, Dave's Gone By. And he I don't know if you brought him with him this time, but his alter ego is Rabbi Saul Solomon, and he had me on his podcast, and we had such a great time. I was entertained as a guest. It was amazing, and listening to his show is just so much fun. Dave, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for giving a shout out to Rabbi Saul. He's sleeping in because he's celebrating all the arrests that happened the other day at Columbia University. He's thrilled about that, but he's just taking it real easy after a late night. But yeah, Rabbi Saul is fun, and unfortunately he has all the wisdom that you are craving from me.
Oh God, forget it. Forget it.
Nothing in terms of
We want to
wisdom.
talk to Saul. We want to talk to Rabbi Saul.
I may have to get him from the other room there, but thank you so much, John.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
No,
were
I
a delightful guest on my program. And John, you can tell what a great podcast presence he is because he wrote this book, American Grit, about Japanese soldiers and interned in World War II. And it really is not where my podcast goes. I go for comedy and the arts and culture, but John sold himself so well as a guest, and he's so personable and well spoken that I was kind of like, yeah, gotta have this guy on the show. And he rolled beautifully with Rabbi Saul in our conversation. You can go watch it at davesgoneby.com, and I hope you will. But thank you, John, for returning the favor and having me on the program.
yeah, no, it's not actually I'm not returning the favor. I wanted you to be on. This is not a favor at all. And it
Oh, in that
was
case, then pay me some money because
that's right. It was amazing because our time together just rolled. And somehow they say that the real pros make it look easy, right? Whether you look at the professional basketball players or football players or entertainers, they make it look easy. And you made it look easy. You somehow were able to take a very serious topic,
okay.
and we rolled, and I felt great about it. I felt really great about it.
Well, me too, because also you're not afraid to joke about certain things or take a pause for levity. I mean, there's nothing quote unquote funny about Japanese internment camps, and
Yep.
yet if you make it, even if it's a tasteless joke, if you make it in the right mood with the right person, you're just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, it allows you to talk about the heavier stuff
Yeah.
as well, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that we talked about was, the term concentration camps, right? I
Right.
mean, for me, the term concentration camps was appropriate. In Europe, I call those camps genocidal extermination camps. Because I just kind of call it like it is, and like I see it. But we made that it just worked. It just, how do
Right.
you how do you make yeah, I mean,
Well,
we're laughing about it right now.
because I don't hold back. I mean, in the moment, and I say this for Rabbi Saul Solomon as well, who did the interview with you. But this idea of like, whoa, I was caught on that phrase you use in your book,
Yeah.
concentration camp, because
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, it's an appropriation of a term that we use very specifically for places like Auschwitz and Bergen. Speaking of
Right.
comedy,
Right.
Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen and Mauthausen, concentration camps, even though definitionally you are correct, a concentration camp means just a place where a group of people are concentrated and forced to do work and labor and against their will, as opposed to quote unquote death camp. We use them
Right. Right.
interchangeably. So it's
Right.
kind of like don't
Right.
steal that phrase. Please
Yeah.
use internment camp. Please use place where
Yeah.
we keep Asian people when we're not ordering their food from the menu, kind of thing. Yeah, don't
Right.
laugh. Don't laugh
Right.
at all. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a fair point. Fair point. Totally. And listen, we're not here to debate
No.
that part of that part of our history, but we are here to talk about creativity and success. And I think it's Dave Lefkowitz is an award-winning playwright,
I
right? Not
am.
Rabbi Saul Song. Yeah,
No,
that's
as I said, Rabbi Solomon, I can hear him snoring in the
right.
and breaking wind. So
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, you
no,
know,
it's just me.
huh?
It's just me for the moment. I
Yep,
mean, I'm
yep,
going to
tons and
interject. I
tons.
really, really want him, but it's going to take a moment.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
But success, you're talking in terms of the definition of success.
Yes, yes, and let's talk a little bit about that. Now, you know, as a playwright, you followed your dream into the entertainment industry, and you got tons of experience in that craft. And you host this podcast. And my impression of the entertainment industry is that it's really, really tough to break into and work into. So congratulations on finding your success and in such a tough industry. But let's talk about that.
Sure.
Let's talk about success.
And my personal experience, which
Yes.
understand I had a cut corners, and I the definition of success of being famous, well known, and rich have completely eluded me on those grounds. If that is how you judge success, I am technically a terrible failure, and I do feel like a loser a lot of the time, even though. I'm married to a wonderful woman, and we live in a very nice house, and I teach, and I'm still creative. I do what I do. Those are the success markers for me, as opposed to a lot of your listeners or people who's like, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. Well, good luck to you. A
Yeah.
lot of people can. I cannot. And I won't mind. I mean, I'm 60. I won't mind being a millionaire by the time I'm 61. Not going to happen. Right. But in terms of like getting into the industry, what I did, my most successful job, and it was a pretty successful thing, is that I was a managing editor of Playbill.com for about
Oh,
6.5 years. I mean, I started as a writer and moved up to a higher position there. And so I was pretty well paid. And it was a very major position in theater, but not as a playwright, not as a creative. I was writing news. I was doing
right.
interviews with a
Right.
lot of celebrities, a lot of
Hmm.
famous people, but still, it wasn't really what I wanted to be. It was already a compromise. It was already, hey, I got a job as a writer, I got a job in theater, I get to see all the theater that I want, but it wasn't putting me, on a Broadway stage.
But one could argue that it was a stepping stone to where you wanted to go.
I thought it would be. I thought it might be. I thought it would
It's
connect with the
okay.
right people, the right producers. If I
Yeah,
interviewed them, if I schmoozed with them, and I was like, hey, how about this play? And how about just didn't work because, they have their own agenda, they have their own
sure.
ideas. And maybe my plays weren't good enough, or I didn't write enough plays, certainly, because I was spending, 60 hours a week writing journalism copy of telling the America what was going on in the theater. So I made that choice, and then I walked away from it to do other things. But I
Hmm.
never stopped trying to be a creative, to write plays. Um, and of course, the year after I left Playbill, or maybe a year and a half, is when I founded Dave's Gone By. So this place, Dave's Gone By, my podcast, which at
Yeah.
that time was a
Yeah.
radio program, it was this idea of all these years I've wanted to do something creative, and nobody's giving me a stage on Broadway. Nobody's paying me, or giving me $100 million to make a movie, or even $3 million to make a movie. So what can I do that's going to get me to a place where every week I can be funny, I can write skits, I can write parody songs or comedy songs, I can still interview people, I can expound my opinions on things. And it was on a commercial radio station, so I can play music that I want to play. And so week by week by week, even though I did not become a Joe Rogan or a Howard Stern, which was again that other underlying dream of like, hey, within a couple of months, everybody will listen to my show. It will go viral. It'll be syndicated. Although this was back when radio, people actually listen to the radio.
Uh-huh.
Right, and it will take me here to here to here. So I'll be creative, but I'll also get paid phenomenally well for it. And people will stop me on the street for my autograph. Well, I made it to level one, but I've stayed there because it's what I enjoy doing. It's a form of therapy. It's a form of joy, and people do a lot. Thousands of people know who I am
Hmm.
doing this podcast. Success,
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's success, right?
So yeah, and that's really that I really want to understand that a little bit more from your perspective, because you know for me, I'm successful every morning when I wake up, right? And so it's one of those things where we live in such a stressful world these days, And people set goals, and you have your BHAGs, you have your big, hairy, audacious goals, right? That you put out there. And but the idea of success eludes a lot of people. And I think what you're talking about is they overdefine it,
Okay. I
right?
mean, if I can use an analogy, God forbid somebody has like third stage ovarian cancer or prostate cancer or something like that, and they've been going through chemotherapy, and they wake up in the morning and they feel a little better than yesterday. Success.
That's
They're
success.
not worried about
Exactly.
$20
Exactly.
million. They're not worried about accomplishing this or doing this at work or finding a better job, assuming they have health care and the bills are paid. They're just where it's like, ooh, if I feel better today, that means I'm probably getting better. And maybe in a couple of weeks when I'm off, I'll be, cancer free or under control and so forth. Success. So for me, success is the ability to still write plays, the ability to still be funny and share and be interviewed on cool programs like this. And I will take it on the days when I don't feel like, God, what happened to my life? And why am I seeing or reading about these crappy shows on Broadway and mine never got there because it's so much better,
Right.
which is egotistical, but how you have to feel when you're a playwright or a
Yeah.
writer. You
Yeah.
sort of have to have that, like, my stuff is so good. Why doesn't the world understand it? Except certain people do. And they say you're wonderful, they're just not producers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, one thing as you were talking that I thought about is that, a whole bunch of little steps cover a whole big distance, right? And if you look at the world that way and say, you know what, just keep going, just keep going, just take little steps, little steps, little steps. Over time, those little steps cover huge, huge distances. But we all want to get from point A to point B in one fell swoop and one
I
great big
know.
jump. And if we can't get there, right, we consider ourselves a failure. And the other part of it, you probably failed a few times in your head, right?
Oh, and daily, but yes, of course.
Yeah, with me,
Well,
it's hourly.
I mean, I never felt I had such hopes. It was a few years ago when I brought my one man show back. I was found a producer who seemed interesting. I found this, and we did a reading at the Dramatists Guild place in New York. And I go, okay, this is the beginning. This is the step. I've got my musical accompaniment. I'm doing it. In fact, the show was called Shalom, Damn It, an evening with Rabbi Saul Solomon, whom you know quite
Yeah,
well. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, so they've invited a couple of producers. They've invited a little invited audience, did it, and the people who were there really liked it. Crickets, 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 and then COVID. So
Oh,
it was
oh,
sort of like everything, and I felt like, okay, I put my eggs in the. You get your hopes up in the entertainment industry so much, and you're
yeah.
like, okay, I had all my eggs in one basket all those years ago, did something, did a lot, and then kind of quiet, 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 no matter what. Let me get my hopes up again. Not ridiculously, but just enough to feel like, okay, just one person can come of this, come of this. And again, so at a certain point, you revise your goals downward, your expectations downward, and yet it's still, even during the pandemic, two of my short plays were produced virtually by a couple of small theater companies in New York. One of them fairly well known. And it was great,
Uh-huh.
I won an award and an honorarium of $50.
Whoa,
Which is
cool.
more money than I've ever won a playwright before. So the validation of people going, "Oh, you're a good writer. Oh, that's a good play." I mean, that's like they know it's worth more than $50. They know
Yeah.
it keeps you going, even though you're your own best critic and worst critic. But when that was happening, I felt on a roll again. I felt like, oh, I got this, and then they're doing this plan, and then again, the industry doesn't necessarily work like that, especially if you're my age now, especially if you're not 22 years old, coming out of Yale, sending your
Yeah.
resume to Simpsons or something. It's different, but I'm still out there. I'm plugging away. I'm writing, working on a memoir of my life doing Dave's Gone By, because
Hmm.
God willing, about a year and a half, I will be at episode number 1,000. That's
Whoa, congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm at
Wow.
940. Tomorrow's going to be soon will be my 940th show. Um, And so if you parcel it out, it's going to be a little over a year when we will hit 1,000. And I want to time my book, my memoir,
Yeah.
and maybe when you publish it, maybe I'll self-publish it, maybe I'll just throw it online as a Kindle thing.
Yeah.
But a few hundred people might read it and go, "Well, this is a funny book," and some interesting stuff about his life as a podcaster and what it meant to put a radio show on and then morph it to a college radio show and then onto internet radio, and now it's a Facebook video podcast. All the while, still the same host, still the same producer, still the
Mhm.
same comic mindset, if you will, and you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But I think people will get a real kick out of reading it. But that's my latest sort of. I really should do this now that we've been on the air for 21 years.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Did we have podcasts for 21 years?
Oh no! Remember, I started on October 6, 2002, on a Long Island radio station, 11 o'clock at night, for not even 1 hour. You get 57 minutes because 3 minutes go back to the radio station for their
Sure.
ads. And that was it. Was audio only. It was a night thing. It was a commercial station, but it was a barter thing at the beginning. And from there, and almost every week. There were times when I had to take a few weeks off, and then we were moving, but still, it's that baby steps thing.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
week, the next week this, the next it's kind of what was that movie? The What About Bob with Bill Murray?
Yeah. Yeah, of
He's
course.
trying to get over being crazy, and he's like, baby steps to the left, baby steps to the right, baby steps to the car.
Oh my
That's what
God.
life is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It is. It is.
Not
And
for everybody. Some people, and I admire them, take big leaps. I mean, you talked about not every. Some people should do that and can do that, and they take the leap, and they're suddenly rich in 3 years, and God bless them, and may
yeah.
they put me in their will when they die. But it hasn't happened for me. But my baby steps have led me to a pretty decent life, so that's
Yeah.
all right too.
Well, and the thing is that when I was on your podcast, I just felt so much joy. It was just it was fun, and you made it was just great. It was wonderful. And and to me, that is I mean, a lot of people, including me, can define success just that way, right? I mean, it's a big deal. It's something really simple, but my goodness, joy is something that eludes a lot of people these days.
Well, which is unfortunate, and that's how I find my joy. I used to sublimate everything into theater. I lived and breathed theater for about 30 years. I would be going to shows 5, 6 nights a week and seeing
Wow.
week after week after week, and writing about them and immersing myself in reading plays. And it was absolutely a joy for me, but it was also not obsessive compulsive, but it was an obsessive way of living my life vicariously, because whatever my job was, or sometimes I didn't have a job, and then I would go to the theater, and for 2 hours I would be in someone else's world, someone else's head, and I could live there, and then I could also judge them. That was the beautiful thing about it. I was also a theater critic,
Yeah.
which I couldn't be for Playbill, but I was for other places. And so I could sit and judge. I could go to the biggest Broadway musical, most important Broadway show, and then say, what did I think of this? And then write it out honestly and hopefully humorously, and have people read me and pay attention to my opinion of this $10 million thing in front of me that is on some level waiting for the judgment of even people like me, who am not Frank Rich or
Sure.
Ben Brinkley or Jesse Green, who's now at the Times. So I lived for that for so many years. Now I live for art a bit and comedy and creativity instead, because I live in Maryland now. My wife and I moved about a year and a half ago
Hmm.
for our teaching careers, if you will. And you will. I used that joke twice. The third time I use it, you will be hysterically laughing. But it's not even a joke, it's just a phrase. But now it's kind of like I haven't been to the theater, and sometimes I miss it, and it's amazing how often I don't, right? But what I get is also I'm teaching a film class, so I'm watching more movies, and I try to watch great movies. And then I'm doing the podcast, and I'm writing in my spare, if you will.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to do the if you will thing because I just did it, so it's too soon to make it. But that's where I'm finding my joy, and in making jokes, and in laughing, finding funny things, enjoying great comedies or great bits on the internet. So so for those of you out there And this, I know this is not an advice show, but if you think your joy is somewhere and that's taken away from you on some level, you'll find it somewhere else.
Yeah,
You can have to look for it a little
exactly.
bit, but it will come in a different place as long as you. It might be golf, right? Or it might, which is more of a Zen sort of ritual. It might be cleaning. Some people are Felix Ungers, and they get their Zen from a nicely mopped floor and a vacuumed carpet.
Yeah,
Fabulous. Some
that's
people
right.
go for poetry or painting, or doing hook rugs. Whatever it is probably out there. If we make even just a little time to that, I'll even give a further example of, I, like all of us, I find other things to do. I get distracted. I don't have enough time in my day to do and so forth. But my wonderful wife discovered on the interwebs this woman named Helen Sword, who is a writer, and I think a bit of an academic writer. And what she does is these little videos on YouTube where she has a kitchen timer, like an egg timer thing, but all these different ones that she collects.
Hmm.
And she'll give a little introduction and say, okay, now we're all going to write for 25 minutes. And she'll start the kitchen timer, and it'll go, and then she'll turn the volume down so you'll hear it. And it's this idea of 25 minutes, not 2 hours, not 4 hours or an hour here, an hour there, but setting aside 25 minutes in your day, less than half an hour, to work, to write whatever you're working on, or she'll give a prompt sometimes and work on that. And this idea of forcing you just to do that much of something creative per day, and we've I've slacked off on that. But in the year and a half that we did that religiously, particularly during the pandemic, I finished, a play that I had started 5 years ago that I kind of put on the back burner. I finished it. I wrote another short play, a longer play. I finished a full-length piece with music in it, and I started working on the memoir back then. Right. So just from half hour a day, not even. I love it. It's not even 30 minutes. It's 25. It forced me to stop doing all this other stuff and be creative. I
That
think
is
that's,
amazing.
to me, that's a very practical and wonderful idea.
And yeah, and she used a physical egg timer.
Yeah, no, literally, you see the timer. Her name is Helen Sword, like the jabby
Yeah,
sword.
yeah.
And she set it for 25 minutes, and you would see it. First, you would hear it, and then she would pop it
Yeah.
out because who can write with in the background? And then just towards the end of it, you hear the ticking again, and then the timer would go off. And say, "Oh, I hope you did some wonderful writing. I'll see you tomorrow." And she
That
had
is,
a dozen of those videos. It's great.
you know, there. I'm kind of speechless right now because I think about my own personal experience, and we all know that we should take time for ourselves. We all know that we should exercise. We all know that we should do some sort of meditation, be it gardening or cleaning, like you said,
Right.
all those different kinds of things. But using the idea of the egg timer that says, that thing is going to, I am going to commit myself to the 25 minutes, and those are mine. Those are my minutes. That's my time. I'm not gonna spend that time working and giving back to the company or whatever, right? I think that's wonderful. In
It
fact,
really
I'm gonna
is.
do it.
And again, it's not a huge ask because there are people who are like, I'm going to go on the diet and I'm not going to eat, candy and potato for a year. I'm just not going to, and they're great for like 3 weeks. Or people who say, I'm going to set aside my mornings for writing. Some people can do that. But a lot
Right.
of people in the working world, or a lot of people who are busy or lazy and so forth, and find other things. Oh, this is interesting on Facebook. Oh, I want to see this on YouTube. Oh, this looks funny on YouTube, and 2 hours go by. So that forcing of just a little segment of time that if you don't think is going to be enough to do anything, turns out to be plenty. It's amazing what you can accomplish.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. One of the things that I talk about when it comes to money, just a little bit related to this, is that you have two choices with your money. One, you can spend it, the other, you can defend it. And what I mean by, right? What I mean
Right.
by defending it is that the whole world wants your money. Everybody wants your
I
money.
want your money.
Yeah, you want my money. I want
I
your
want
money,
mortgage.
right?
Yeah.
We're all living in this world, and you have to defend it. You have to defend it, and it's the same thing with your time. right?
Mm.
Everybody wants your time. You look at, you look at this crazy thing. You know how much dumb time I spend on this thing, right? I mean, looking at videos I have no business looking at.
Well,
I just
we'll
get,
leave that aside.
it's right. It's that whole dopamine
Don't
thing. And
spend your
it's
money on Kleenex, I'll tell you. But yeah,
right.
yeah. But time is the most
Yeah,
valuable thing we have. It really, I mean, health, hell, all right, health, fine. But this, like, there's even an old Irish ballad, "Let no man steal your time," and it's actually THYME, so it's a little play on words. But let no man steal, or woman steal your time. The thing that belongs to you, because that's a thing. You know, we got 70, 80, God willing, 90, or if you're Jewish, 120 years on this planet. And then it goes faster than you think, and sometimes slower than you think. But
sure.
it's and you know, there's nothing that enrages me more if someone is wasting my
Yeah.
time, or I feel like my
Yeah.
time is
Yeah.
is like I could be doing this right now, but now I'm doing this. You know, and whether it's standing on a line in the supermarket or whatever it is, I'm like, why am I doing this right now? And we all have to. We all, it's part of
Yep.
being human on the planet is tons of our time is wasted without our even, you know, nothing we can do about it. But
Sure.
if you can get those 25 minutes.
Yeah, 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 and it's there. It's there. Sometimes we have to work at it. But I'll tell you, you know, there are times when I find myself getting into these little grooves, right? Like you said, you did the 25 minutes and then you didn't do the 25 minutes.
Well, that was, yeah.
Um, and I've when I've done things like that, it's just amazing the things you come up with and your creativity. It's like a part of your brain is dormant, and you give it space and you give it time and it just comes out.
Most
And
of my brain is dormant. I realized that. I realized that since I was 10. But but in certain moments, I can wake up, perk up. Yeah, and it's the other thing. If you're not that kind of person, this idea of deadlines. So another way of doing that for people to force them into a position of being creative or getting a project done, even if you're not creative, is have someone institute a deadline for you. You know,
yeah,
if I had an agent or I had someone who said, well, you know, that theater company's waiting for your play, that's a great way of putting detail
absolutely.
on a
Abs
without that. If it's just, you know, I'm gonna write this and a couple of people are gonna read it's gonna go in my drawer, that's a really great way to not finish anything.
yeah,
So if there can be some level, or you know, when I do an interview, I interview some pretty famous people for Long Island Woman magazine. And I know that, you know, the publisher is waiting for that article. And it gives me a long
yeah,
lead,
yeah.
well, really weeks. But I'm like, you know, I might
It's
finish it
there. Yep,
because if I don't,
yep,
I
yep.
don't get paid a lot, but I don't get paid, and I don't see my name, and I don't see the cover picture of Billie Jean King or I forget who I interviewed. Some comedian.
Martina.
Susie Essman. Who?
I
No, I never interviewed Chia Rivera. I wish I
Okay.
could. She's dead now. I can't, you know, should be a really quiet interview at this point. But I tried to get her on Dave's Gone By a couple of times when she was like, well, I've had a lot of other famous ones. Thank you for bringing up my show. But yeah, but
Yeah, it's you talk about I kind of look at what you just talked about as a little bit of accountability, right? Personal accountability. And I have a very good friend. His name is David Egan. And when I stopped working, and I quote unquote retired, he called me up and he says, "Hey, I want to have lunch." Anyway, make a long story short, he says, "I want to stay in touch with you." I said, "Yeah, sure. LinkedIn, our paths will cross someday." He says, "No, I want to stay in touch with you. You want to write your book. You want to launch your podcast. I want to be part of it." And we ended up meeting once a month. He said, every Friday, first Friday of every month, right? We're going to meet. I said, "David, well, I don't have anything for you." He says, "That's okay. So then we'll just meet the following month, but we'll have this cadence of meeting every month." And you know what? I can from the bottom of my heart, if not for him and not for that little bit of accountability and that voice in my head that says, "I got to meet with this guy and I got to talk to him every, first Friday of every year." He kept me going. He kept me going because I
you
knew
are
that
reminding
I had that deadline. So it worked for me. That's right on.
Well, thank you for reminding me of this, and I'm ashamed to have forgotten it. But before the pandemic, when my wife and I were living in Colorado, I joined a writers group, a club, if you will, that met at the library once a month, and we all had to bring in pages. And it would have been so easy without not to have any pages, not to have anything to bring in. But no, every third week, I'd be like, oh crap, we're meeting. And sometimes I was just bringing jokes, and sometimes I would bring in pieces that I was doing for my radio
Sure.
program, like the Wretched Puns of Destiny, which is a fun thing of puns that I do. And other times it would be revising a play or working on something I was working on or trying to write a short story. But boy, oh boy, accountability, deadlines,
Yeah.
this idea of these one, and they're very lovely, lovely people. It was a pleasure to be with them too. We were like friends meeting once a month, but we were friends with a purpose. And that purpose was a
Yes.
and we got
Yes.
in there, and it's like, I have pages,
Right.
it was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. This is huge. My mind just went because it's one of those things where I just realized we talk about surrounding yourself with people who are better than you and getting in with groups of like-minded people. My success after my retirement, and it's almost been 2 years, has been because one guy, right? One person.
David Egan, who
Yeah,
kind of got
David Egan, and
yeah.
he, folks out there, have somebody, right? Have somebody, and it's for you to help keep you account. That I just realized what a big deal that is.
Oh,
You
good.
know, yeah,
You
yeah.
should call him up and thank him. You should
I
say,
am going
dude,
to.
I'll
I
buy
am
you
gonna.
lunch because yeah,
Yeah, and it's because there's nothing. You talked about your $50 that you made. And
oh
when you right when you said that, you said you felt validated. You felt validated, right?
it was
And
more about the win than the money, but yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah, right. And but I mean, we live in a world where we're pounded every day. Right? But when you have a David Egan, or you have whomever, right? Or you have this group of writers that you worked with, right? You're there to validate each other
Sure.
and to encourage each other. And that voice of encouragement can I mean, you can move mountains when you have somebody on your side.
Molehills. You can't.
Huh?
Mountains are really tough, but molehills you can kick
Well,
over, you can push, and yeah.
you collaborate and you buy some dynamite, and then you can move mountains. And so, yeah, there
No,
you
but
go.
it's interesting also what you're saying, finding people who are better than you, which is really easy for me because basically everybody's better.
Yeah, me too.
But my wife has that thing of she loves people. She's an academic, and she wants to be with people who are smarter than she is. She wants to learn from them. She wants to be around them as a think tank. I sort of see that, and I like the mix. I think you should, if you can, surround yourself with people that you know are better, know that are on your level, and maybe one or two that even though this is not a nice thing to say, that are not quite there where
Yeah,
you
no, 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 I get it. I get it.
and
Yeah,
because you always, if you aspire to these people, you'll never be them.
right.
And the people that you are, you already know them because you're you. But and then
Yep,
you have a couple of, but if you have that whole mix, you'll be amazed at the ideas you'll get from the people who are where
absolutely.
you're at, and
Absolutely.
then you won't be intimidated so much by the people who are, obviously
Right.
smarter or more creative or more successful or whatever.
I mean, I remember this is about 6 months ago. I was at LAX in Los Angeles, and I was just people watching. I'm just watching all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people going by, and I realized that there wasn't a single person out of those hundreds of people that I was looking at that couldn't teach me something. That couldn't, right? I mean, my grandkids that are 4 and 6 years old now, they teach me stuff every day. And so so to your point, right? And that's part of the reason why I love this podcast, right? Because we can all lift each other. We can all lift each other. We can all validate each other. We can all make each other's world just a little bit better. And so it's really cool. And success doesn't have to be this big huge thing that you can't see the end of the rainbow on. I'm happy. I am literally happy waking up every morning, like I said.
Thank God. Now, granted, if one of your listeners is a theatrical producer, or a film producer, and wants to get
Yep.
in touch with me and say, Dave, I've got like $5 million. I want to produce something because you're funny and you seem like a good writer. I will not say, oh no, I'm fine.
Yeah. No,
I'm a
that's
good
right.
man. I'm
That's
happy
right.
waking up in the morning. No, I would be happier waking up in the morning with $5 million to spend on
Of
Broadway. No,
course.
I would be much happier. But
Yeah.
for now, it's good, and it's a good way of looking at it because you're obviously an insanely positive person, which I am not. I mean, I know you bring out the positivity in me on this podcast. The nice thing about my show is that it's a mix. It's kind of like I'll go in, and my wife actually does the comical sound effects in the background on the show. So I
Okay.
start complaining about something, which I do all the time. She actually has the baby wah button that she,
Yeah.
you'll hear a baby in the background. And I'll know that I'm starting to, to be kind of cranky about something, but that's also part of the joy.
Oh,
Is kind of,
absolutely.
who wants to listen to me complain about some little thing in my day? Well, if I make it funny, my listeners
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. That's right. That's
That's
right. That's
the
right.
joy too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dave, this has been wonderful. This has been a joy. And thank you for sharing this part of you, big part of you. How do people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Well, if you want to see more parts of me, but not the really dirty ones. But we do have a segment now called Bunion Watch, where we look at my bunions to see if they've grown. This is the kind of thing I do on my show, and I do a lot of other
Okay,
funny, weird
good.
things. But if you're interested in the show, and I hope you are, the best place to go is davesgoneby.com. DAVES, Dave, like my name, davesgoneby.com. Not only will that give you the information on the live program that we do every Saturday morning on my Facebook page, Dave's Gone By, from 9 until noon, but our archives are there from the very first episode from 21 and a half years ago, all the way through last week. So, and it's free. We don't charge anything, although I should. But davesgoneby.com, that is the great starting point for Dave's Gone By.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dave, thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and would love to have you back sometime.
Oh, next
So,
week. I'm
perfect. All
John, it's
right.
been a delight. You're a delightful person. Thank you for having me on your show, and I do hope to be back
My
sometime soon.
pleasure, my honor, and for sure. Yeah. Listen, everybody, thank you for joining us. God bless you. I love you, and see you next time. Bye.